visit these places at special times of the year. Does that coincide with the Wheel of the Year?
Absolutely, yes. The Wheel of the Year, as a structure that's used by Neo-Pagans today, was really basically constructed by Gerald Gardner and Ross Nichols. Ross Nichols, head of Druids, Gerald Gardner, founder of modern Wicca. And they put together what was already traditional, but perhaps not in that format as a Wheel of the Year. Ancient British, Irish and Welsh and Scots would have celebrated the agricultural festivals, which are Imbolc, which was the sowing, the blessing and the sowing of the seeds, and is seen today as Candlemas, and often seen as the festival of St. Bridget, who was initially a pagan deity, Bridget, who was keeper of the sacred flame and had 19 priestesses tending her flame in Kildare in Ireland. And there is a holy well there that still stands, and nowadays the nuns carry on that practice and that tradition. So you have Beltane after that, which is the May Day festival, the celebration of summer and abundance, the Jack in the Green festival, and a lot of fertility, the aspect of fertility, celebrating fertility. We've just celebrated Lammas, which was on the 1st of August, or Lammas Eve, which was the 31st of July, which is the celebration of the first fruits of the harvest. And you have traditions in Canada and America, where you come from, of the Corn Mother and the Grain Mother.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? So there's a lot of traditions. There's an Indian celebration of the green corn dance that is always celebrated at the first harvest in America. And that's a traditional ceremony. So these are celebrated all around the year. In Greece, in September, they would have celebrated the Eleusinian Mysteries, which were the celebration of Demeter, the Corn Mother, and Persephone, the Corn Maiden. Not to get distracted there, but that's the Lammas festival. You then have the autumn equinox, which I'm talking about. Hang on, I've missed my point there. You then go on. The agricultural season is Halloween, Samhain, which would have been the blessing and purification before winter. Interspersed with them, you've got the two solstices and the two equinoxes.
What I absolutely love about the Wheel of the Year is that it consciously acknowledges our interconnection to the seasons, our interconnection to nature. And I think that largely in the Western world, we've continued these traditions, but they've lost the conscious connection to nature. And I love it that the Wheel of the Year seems to infuse that appreciation back into our lives and into our holidays.
Oh, I absolutely agree with you. I think one of the things with the Wheel of the Year is that it teaches us a natural cycle. And if we can connect with our natural way of being, we've become so distant, so disconnected from our natural way of being. We no longer know how to let go. We no longer know how to grieve. We no longer know how to think of what we are going to sow and the consequences of what we sow. It's very important that if you're following a path that connects you to nature, that you do actually make the effort to go out and connect with the cornfields, connect with where our food comes from, connect with the trees, connect with the grass, put your hands on the earth and feel the energy of the earth. When you go to these sacred sites, don't just look at the history and what it means, but sit there and absorb the atmosphere and see what it connects with you. Even if you read about the festival, say we're talking about Lammas at the moment, and it's sunny and beautiful, and the corn is about to be harvested. And what does that mean for us on a spiritual level? And if you can take a loaf of bread, if you're in the city, and look at where that bread has come from and how it was made, and that actual process, that nowadays, even nowadays, we have these huge combine harvesters. But we were singing at one point the song of John Barleycorn, which is an old folk song in England, and they talked about, cutting it down with knives and grinding it between two stones, and it taking on a personality, the personality of a person, John Barleycorn, or the divine spirit contained within the corn, that is in the end sacrificed for us. We've lost that connection, that personal identification with the spirit of the corn, which you can only really learn if you actually go to the corn, if you see where it comes from, and you understand the process that transforms it into something greater than the sum of its parts, which is the spiritual message for us, to transform ourselves into something greater than the sum of our parts.
A lot of people are drawn to astrology because they miss that connection to nature that we used to have. Max Weber calls it the alienation of postmodernism. You know, this idea that we live in these big cities and we have these very isolated lives, completely disconnected from our environment. Astrology is one way that people are brought back to that interconnection to nature. And it sounds like the Wiccan path and learning about the Wheel of the Year is another way that people are further encouraged to connect with their environment. Do you think that that's, as a teacher, I'm wondering about the longing that people have to know nature. What do you think that's about? What do you think that speaks to, that so many people are asking themselves spiritual questions and finding themselves wanting to learn more about not only astrology but Wicca as well?
I think the longing that you speak about is a longing that sometimes people can't identify. When you say it's a longing for nature, I don't think many people actually know that it's a longing for nature or know what that longing is. They often know that there is this longing, and sometimes it comes up in questions like, who am I? Where am I going? Where have I come from? What is my potential? What is my path on life? And those questions are extraordinarily important for your development, your spiritual development. But we often find ourselves confused as to what the answers are. But that longing comes from, in my opinion, the soul to connect with its divine self. That if we distance ourselves into a world that is driven by particular goals that are material, and disconnects us from something that is more cyclical and more natural, then we are going to become divorced from our natural selves. And that longing becomes huge in people that live lives that are wholly material. So the more you divorce yourself and distance yourself from your natural connection to who you really are and how you express what life means to you and your own identity, the more that longing will become huge, and there will be a need for you to find and seek that inner self out. And astrology, as you're saying, is another way of doing that. I have colleagues who work on a Wheel of the Year, on the astrological Wheel of the Year, where they focus on a year program where you immerse yourself into each of the signs and learn an aspect of yourself, so that you would go through that wheel in the same way. So if you're looking at Leo at the moment, aren't you? So you're looking at finding your self-identity, your pride, your dignity, your honor, as well as your generosity and your inner child. And if you learn about that, then you then go on to Virgo and learn about work ethics and, you know, keeping something consistent, and then go on to Libra with balance and harmony, and Scorpio going within and finding the inner self and the secrets and mysteries. You're learning, in another way, the same kind of inner development.
What is the most rewarding thing about being a teacher, being a tarot reader and a teacher, and the contribution that you make to the world through your work? What's most rewarding about it?
I guess initially it's to share what you have. I think I never really particularly wanted to be a teacher. I was quite happy being a student and studying, and still am. But I think you get to a point where you read some books and you think, that's not really stretching me. I knew that. I want to be stretched more. And I think I got to a point where I felt that if I taught, it was the questions from the students that would stretch me. And certainly that has happened. So initially I think it was part of a learning process that I wanted to progress, and I thought that my learning would expand more by teaching, and that has been true because your students teach you and stretch you. But I think also it's immensely rewarding to be able to see students find something, particularly if you're teaching spiritual path, to see students find something that is so meaningful and so rewarding and sets them on a path that you may never see again. You may just have had that moment with them where they go, do you know what, I really got it in that moment, I really understood it, and from then I have decided this is what I'm going to do. And then maybe you don't hear from them for a couple of years, but then a couple of years later they'll come back and they'll go, I've written this book and it really actually started at that workshop, and gosh, that just takes my breath away. That is absolutely monumental to me.
But it's also the small things as well, just knowing that someone is living better as a result of something that you taught them. I'm sure that interweaves your life daily. Yes.
Absolutely.